The IRL Indycar Series is in action at Chicagoland Speedway. That means another edition of Indy Racing Today here on ESPN Speed World. Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Jenkins. Welcome to Chicagoland, which is actually located southwest of Chicago in Joliet, Illinois. It's a 1.5 mile, 18-degree bank track, and this was the scene last year of the closest finish in IRL history. It's also a very tough track. Just after practice opened on Friday, Greg Ray had a very bad crash. He was not injured. However, the car was damaged badly enough that he will not be competing here today. 2 weeks ago at Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Elio Castro-Neves won his second race in the last 3 outings and is now the new points leader in the IRL. He beat to the checkered flag by just a few tenths of a second Sam Hornish Jr. And just after that race, the next day, Hornish announced that he would lead the Panther team next year, and Jack Arute instead joined Marlboro Team Penske.
Yeah, Bob, and he's going to drive for that same Elio Castro-Neves as a teammate. But he replaces Gilles de Ferret, who's elected to go into retirement. But for Sam and Pennzoil Team Panther, it's been an incredible run. 2 championships, 9 victories. And let's point out, not out of the hunt quite yet for a 3rd consecutive title. You need a little help, but you've got to run the table, Sam, the remaining 3 races. Can this team do that?
We won all 3 of these races last year. It'll be tough to do that again this year. But, the big thing about it is that anything can happen. And, how many people are close together today? I mean, you get a bad pit stop or whatever, and you're shuffled to the back of the pack. You could have a car that's, third quick, but you end up finishing 15th because you can't get through the traffic again. So, it'll be good to try to finish up towards the front. That's the big key here. And, there's stranger things that have happened. So
now, when you come up to those red and white cars, you don't think about next year?
No, not at all. I mean, at Nazareth, I was trying everything I could do to get around him, and short of take each other both out. I know that I need the points to be able to run good and to be able to finish high in the points. But I'll run those guys just as hard, maybe even harder.
Hey, Gary, what about the guy that Sam Hornish is replacing at Marlboro Team Penske?
Boy, what a career for Gilles de Ferret. Let's quickly review some of the numbers. Nearly 160 open-wheel starts in Indy cars, 11 wins, none bigger, of course, than the Indy 500 this last month of May. A couple of kart championships thrown in there just for good measure. Gilles, how difficult was it for you and your family to reach this decision?
Very difficult, Gary. I tell you, it's being a race car driver is everything I've ever known since I was a young kid, and everything I wanted to be. And so it was a very difficult and emotional decision for me. But, I felt it was best for me to stop while I was still half decent. And I think this is probably as good a time as any. I'm still fighting for the championship. I just won the Indy 500, so I guess I feel that I'm as good as I've ever been.
You have indeed. And when we sample driver opinion about this news relating to Gilles de Ferret and his announced decision to retire, it's clearly obvious that this man commands tremendous respect. Let's start with Scott Sharp.
A lot of respect for him to be going out on top of his game, but certainly he could probably run 5, 7, 8 more years if he wanted to.
He won pretty much everything he's been doing, and it's good to see him retiring this way.
There's probably a lot of talk after he won the 500, he's pretty much won everything now, so, there wasn't too much to hang around for.
One of the guys you look up to in the Indy Racing League is one of the best drivers there is, and so I'm just glad I got to have 1 year to race against him.
Good for him. He's had a great career, and we definitely wish him well.
High praise indeed for Gilles de Ferret, and he's driven, of course, recently for this man, Roger Penske. You've had so many great drivers over the years. Where does Gilles fit into the picture in your mind, Roger?
Well, Gary, I really got to look at the current time. Gilles was the one that came to the team when we were down in a slump. He got us our 100th win. The 2 kart championships you just can't forget. And obviously the Indianapolis 500 victory this year will go down as probably with Elio getting the pole and Gilles winning the race has just been fantastic. He's the ultimate gentleman. Obviously, I think he's a lot like Rick. He's worked well with the sponsors, and he's been obviously a tremendous team player and someone that very hard to replace.
Any chance you could twist his arm into trying to defend that Indy championship next May?
Well, we've talked about that, but I think that, like Rick, he said, once I'm out, I'm out.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Bob?
Well, Gilles, of course, will be in the starting lineup along with 20 others today. The Delphi Indy 300 from here at Chicagoland Speedway. It's on ABC at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And we'll be back to talk with Elio in a moment. Way, Joliet, Illinois. The track is actually located on historic Route 66. It is indeed a multi-purpose facility in the shadows of the Chicago Loop. We talked earlier about the race 2 weeks ago in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. It was a real nail-biter as Helio Castroneves beat Sam Hornish Jr. to the checkered flag by 16/100ths of a second. Can't get much faster than that. And, of course, after the victory, Helio accommodated the fans with his traditional climbing of the fence. And as we indicated, it also put him in the points lead in the IRL Series with 3 races to go. Now, mathematically, several remain in contention for the championship. In recent races, however, the hottest driver in the series is Castroneves, whose lead over his teammate Gilles de Ferran Jack is 25 points.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, Gilles de Ferran, Helio's retiring. He's in second. I mean, give the old man a break. Let him win the championship.
Well, now we play with him. Now he's a senior resident, you know, in Miami, relax, having a good time.
Play shuffleboard?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'll figure it out later. But I tell you one thing. He won't lift off. He want to win this championship as bad as probably there's 5 guys chasing this championship. So again, he's on the top. He want to get out really well. He want to get out as a champion. So it's going to be a tough competitor to be out there.
Tougher to race against a friend or a competitor like Gilles de Ferran, your teammate. You know, Tony Kanaan's your buddy.
That's right. I mean, but I believe everybody's in the same goal, want to win a race, and obviously we care about each other. When you put a helmet, it's business, man. I'm sorry. We want to finish you ahead of anyone. But when you get out, we discuss, we chat about it, and I think that's the good thing about him.
When you take a look at the X factor for this man, it stands up on the timing and scoring stand where Tim Cindric, the president of Penske Racing, calls the shots. Little known fact, though, is that Tim Cindric was an outstanding hoops player. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we went behind the scenes with the president of Penske Racing, Tim Cindric.
It's a radio check, Helio. How much fuel are we planning on putting in here, Grant? Helio, don't do a burnout this time. Just try and save your tires here a little bit. Still can't get down there on that low line, can you? Yellow, 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 turn 2. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Helio, we're going to run slot 2 here once we go green. Grant, are these the same shots Gilles running, or are they different? There's about 9 minutes left here, Helio. Plenty of time to think about what you want. 10-4, pit this lap. He's coming in.
So a glimpse behind the scenes with one of the team managers, Tim Cindric. And of course, he's on the radio with Helio Castroneves, the longtime friend of Tony Kanaan and a rival for the championship. You were #1 in points until last race at Nazareth. Then an incident with Thomas Scheckter knocks you down to 3rd, 32 points back. Is there a sense of desperation that now sets in as a result of that incident?
Well, definitely the incident hurt us big time, but you can't be desperate. In a race car, you have to be calm and get your heads to work and then try to make the best that you can. And obviously 32 points is a lot, but you know, we're ahead when we came to Nazareth, and now we're behind, so anything can happen today.
Horsepower tracks for the final 3 races. Is that a benefit to you or a hindrance?
Wow, I would rather be in my ovals that the drivers can make the difference a little bit more, but here makes very exciting. The next 3 are going to be close racing. You have to play by luck a little bit, and then, you know, I don't like to do that sometimes, but that's what makes this championship so exciting, and we're going to go for it. That's what we have. That's where we have to go.
Why don't you lead us into our starting grid today?
I will, but there is something really wrong in there. I'm not in the first row, so we'll see.
Richie Hearn, car number 2.
Thomas Scheckter, car number 10.
Philippe Jaffoni, car number 21.
Kenny Brack, car number 15.
Scott Dixon, car number 9.
Robbie Buell, car 24.
Brian Herta, car number 27.
Sam Hornish Jr., car number 4. Helio Castroneves, car number 3.
Dan Weldon, car number 26.
Jonathan Kaki, car number 12.
Gilles de Ferran, car number 6.
Alex Barron, car number 52.
Tony Kanaan, car number 11.
Sarah Fisher, car number 23.
Ed Carpenter, car number 18.
Alan Tur Jr., car number 31.
Roger Yasukawa, number 55.
Buddy Lazier, car number 91.
Scott Sharp, car number 8.
AJ 44th, car number 14.
Well, Richie Hearn, we heard you introduce yourself. You're starting on the pole position. What a great way to come back. Everybody knows the draft is important at this racetrack. Do you want to be out in front, or do you want to ride in the comfort of the draft?
Well, right now our plan is if we can lead, we're going to lead, but you can save a lot of fuel in the draft. You know, I'll just play it by ear. I mean, if like Thomas challenges me pretty hard, I'll probably just let him go and just kind of float around in the draft there, but there's no way to break away, so you just kind of have to work real hard to get your car working, and when there's 3 or 4 cars in front of you, and hopefully you're in the front row coming down to the checkered.
Jack Arute, let's not forget, this is a man that's won in IRL competition. It's been a while ago, but he knows how to do it.
Yeah, Gary, good to have him back. Also good to have Sarah Fisher back after this, well, terrifying crash during the final warm-ups before the race at Nazareth. For Sarah Fisher, it was a scary moment and required an overnight stay in a hospital in Lehigh Valley. But Sarah's tough. She's back with the GMAC AOL team for Dry and Round Bold Racing, and a little bit of a back problem, maybe a little soreness.
Yeah, I mean, they said that I had one vertebrae chipped, one vertebrae that was kind of a little cracked, but not too bad. I come from sprint car world, Jack, and you know, we get back in the car as soon as we can. So I'm doing fine. I have no pain. I'm ready to go.
Let's talk about this racetrack. Doesn't really matter where you qualify at this place. It's just how well can you draft.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great race. We're side by side, and we've had probably one of the closest race cars that Mikey O'Gara and I have put together this year. We're starting to communicate well, so we'll see where it takes us.
It's good to see Sarah Fisher back, Gary. It's good to see the guy you're with back as well.
Boy, absolutely. Let me take you back almost 2 months ago to the day. We're at Kansas City on the 1.5 mile racetrack here, and Felipe Giafoni and Morris Nunn's number 21 ends up with this violent ride up against the wall. It ends up with a broken femur in his right leg, a broken pelvis as well, but he's back in a race car, and he's back with a vengeance. You qualified inside row number 2. What are the physical concerns now as you look ahead to 300 miles?
No, I think the guys did a great job. I was having a little trouble just to hold the pedal flat, you know, and but now we made some adjustments, and we should be all set to go.
So are you concerned at all about this, or are you confident?
Well, I think once I'm up to speed, you know, you have so many things going on that I'm not concerned. I mean, I'll find out pretty soon.
And of course, the man who had been driving his car was Alex Barron, and people are saying, okay, what's happened to Alex? Jack, I think you've got the answer.
Well, he's just joined on with Red Bull Cheever Racing, and he's at the cockpit and the controls of that car. Alex, chemistry is so very important on any race team. Was it difficult, or how difficult was it to come up to speed with a new operation?
Well, this one was a bit difficult because it was a short amount of time, but the guys worked hard in the shop, and we're lucky to get a seat from Penske, the seat that we did for the Dallara, and that helped move along quite quickly. But the guys have been working really hard, and even up until this last session, we've been doing things to make things right for the race. So, guys, you know, we're really looking forward to running the Red Bull car here in the race. I think we got a strong engine with Chevrolet, and you know, the Dallara is a bit new, but I think we got a pretty good handle on it for the race.
Now, many people will wonder, well, then what's happened with Buddy Rice? Well, I had the opportunity to talk to Eddie Cheever Jr., who's in charge of the Red Bull operation, and he said Buddy Rice is here. In fact, Bob, he will be in the pits rooting on Alex Barron. The move was made to try and find the missing chemistry on this team. When I asked Eddie Cheever, what about a 2-car operation for the final 2 races of the 03 season? He said, in a perfect world, that's exactly what they'd like to do. But he said to me, Jack, you're just going to have to stay tuned.
And Jack, while a few drivers return to the series or are hooked up with a new team this weekend, we have one driver making his debut. Ed Carpenter, a veteran of USAC and the Menards Infiniti Pro Series. He won, in fact, at Indianapolis, makes his IRL debut today.
There's no question about the nature of the finish we're about to see. There's only 1 second that separates first through 11th. And they pass under the white flag.
About a foot that time.
Paul, there's not a spectator in these stands today that is sitting down right now.
2 by 2, the front 4. The field all tightly bunched together. Heading into turn 3. On the final lap. Now Buddy Lazier comes up to take a look to the inside. And Unser Jr. and Hornish go to the line side by side. It's Hornish who takes the win by 24 10,000ths of a second. Hornish with his 7th career win.
And for Al Unser Jr., watching it 1 year later doesn't make it any better. But that was then. This is now. Your Cortec O'Brien team been mired in the back of the pack just a little bit last practice session. Were you able to get some cures to your ills?
Well, we hope so. You know, really all weekend long we've been searching for a little bit of speed, and we haven't been able to find it yet. And so both Scott Sharp and myself are near the back of the pack. And, you know, the draft is a big thing here, and so it's going to take good, clean pit stops and off strategy a little bit, maybe get out of tune with the leaders and catch the yellows right. And if we can get into the lead group, then we can hang with them and be a part of the finish.
Well, there's a little tidbit for you, Bob. Some other news went down this week at Chicagoland, didn't it?
That is correct. Yesterday, the Infinity Pro Series got a new name. Menard Inc., the Midwest chain of home improvement stores, announced that it would co-sponsor the series. And so now officially, that series is known as the Menard Infinity Pro Series, and a 12-race schedule was announced for next year. That series competed here at Chicagoland Speedway yesterday. A great race. Everything was going well until Marco Chiocci and Paul Dana touched Dana hard into the wall. He was not injured. Look at this racing. This continued for many laps with 7, 8 drivers just inches apart. Late in the race, Marco Chiocci had this incident that brought out the caution flag, and they had a one-lap dash to the checkered flag. Here's how it ended. Mark Taylor is in yellow, Ed Carpenter down at the bottom, Simmons up on top, and by that much the closest finish in Infinity Pro Series history. Mark Taylor takes the win, Carpenter second, then Simmons, Lyondike, and Aaron Fike finished 5th. Gary, so that means that Ed Carpenter is going to do a double today.
Well, I tell you, Bob, we were all biting our fingernails. I don't know about this guy. Ed ends up second in that race, but now you're graduating here. You're making your debut here with the Indycars. You're driving for PDM. How tough is this transition?
I mean, we did quite a bit of testing, so the biggest struggle for me was just getting used to the speed. And through the testing, we had a really good test here. I mean, got real comfortable in the car, so I was more used to that speed, and it just made the Pro Series seem slower. So I'm just kind of at IndyCar pace right now and enjoying it.
So what's the goal today as you try to execute this amazing double?
Our car's been so great all weekend. The PDM guys have done a great job. I mean, got Metabolife Ultra on board, so we've got a little extra financial support, but I've had a great race car. So I mean, my goal is to finish the 200 laps first, and then if we can be on the lead lap of this thing, I'd be thrilled.
And Bob Jenkins, it's always fun to bring new faces into our sport, into this particular series, and we wish you nothing but good stuff here today.
Thanks.
All right.
The most recent graduate of the Menards Infinity Pro Series to the IRL, A.J. Foyt IV, the series champion last year. He finds himself, however, third in the rookie point standings in the IRL coming into this event as Roger Yasukawa leads that trio. Chicagoland Speedway gave us the closest finish in series history last year, and our driver analyst Scott Goodyear gives us one reason why at the track.
Chicago is one of 6 mile-and-a-half racetracks on the IRL circuit. And with this 18-degree banking, it allows for multiple grooves for the drivers to race through the turns. At 220 miles an hour, drivers race wheel to wheel just inches away from each other. The speed here is incredible. But as we have seen in all these super speedways, the trick to winning today will be the art of drafting, which drivers have to play to perfection to keep themselves in the lead group. Having driven on these types of tracks many times, I can tell you that staying up front is the most important part of a driver's strategy. Another crucial element will be the pit stops, which put pressure on both the driver and the crew. An extra 1 or 2 seconds in the pit box could cost a driver a position in that lead group. What this all means here in Chicago is that the fastest car on a super speedway doesn't always win the race. Instead, the driver making the smartest drafting move, either on the last lap or even in the last corner, will find victory lane.
Last evening after qualifying, the drivers crossed the track and signed autographs for the fans. 2 of the longest lines for Sarah Fisher and Elio Castro-Neves and Gilles de Ferran. Kenny Breck was there signing copies of his new CD from his band. That the CD is called Live in Nashville, that was released just earlier this weekend. We'll be right back. Illinois, which is located about 40 miles southwest of the city of Chicago. The city comes alive twice a year with major races here at Chicagoland Speedway. Today, the Delphi Indy 300 for the IRL IndyCar Series. Last Wednesday, in the shadows of the John Hancock Building in downtown Chicago, Scott Sharp joined the commuter traffic in a gasoline-powered 2-seater IRL car. His passenger was a local radio personality Kathy Hart. Through the streets of Chicago, no blocking of traffic. He was right along with the traffic, and the ride drew lots of comments and some strange looks from the Windy City residents as Scott drove up and down Lakeshore Drive, Michigan Avenue, and Rush Street.
It's been a great day so far, driving around downtown Chicago. You know, getting the chance to run down Lakeshore Drive. We're going pretty fast too. We're actually passing a couple cars. And then going down Rush Street and then some of the downtown stuff. It's amazing the looks you get from the people that have never seen an Indycar before up that close. Certainly, I think it's a great way to expose our sport to so many people that don't get the chance to come to the track. And also, it's fun for me being able to see all the sights of downtown Chicago, one of my favorite cities.
Well, you think traffic was tight on the Lakeshore for Scott Sharp. Wait till you see what we have in store for you today. In fact, for the final 3 races of this championship run, the fastest laps you'll ever see, and they're only going to be inches away.
And Paul, these 3 races are very important because there's a championship going on right now. All the drivers know that. There's also a lot of drivers actually looking for a job, so there's auditioning going on right now. All these guys think that they have an opportunity to get maybe a possible better seat. And the other thing is, drivers don't want to have an effect on the championship. That means they don't want to take out the leader. There's a lot of pressure on a lot of drivers today.
They are running so close here at Chicagoland Speedway. Jenkins turns away from the monitor. This is Brian Barnhart, the senior official of the IRL. He cut a swath back and forth, pacing through the entire morning practice, and right there is why they're running so close.
Paul, wheel to wheel at 220 miles an hour in practice, I would say that we have more passing and wheel-to-wheel racing in our practice sessions than a lot of other races actually have in their main event. Great, exciting racing, and this is fun. I, as a driver, loved it.
And speaking of those final 3 races, 4 100ths of a second is the total of the close finishes here. Bob?
Well, join us for the IRL IndyCar Series Delphi Indy 300 at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, live on ABC. Coming up next on ESPN2, baseball tonight. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more information, log on to ESPN.com.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
2 weeks ago, Helio Castroneves held off the competition on the final lap and climbed the fence to celebrate.
Helio Castroneves will see the checkered flag first.
Today, in Chicago, the Indycars invade the Windy City.
2x2, the front 4.
Where speed is king.
And Unser Jr. and Hornets go to the line side by side.
And photo finishes spectacular. Points leader Castroneves leads a Penske charge, determined to find victory lane. The IndyCar Championship is heating up next.
Delphi's 200,000 employees from around the world join me in giving the most famous command in racing. Drivers, start your engines!
Just 3 races to go in the IRL IndyCar Series, and today from Chicagoland Speedway, Joliet, Illinois, ABC Sports presents the Delphi Indy 300. Hi everyone, I'm Bob Jenkins. Welcome to Chicagoland, the scene last year of the closest finish in IRL history. 1.5 miles of 18 degrees banking, and it's already claimed its first victim. On Friday, shortly after practice began, Greg Ray had a crash. He was not injured, but his car was severely damaged, and he will not be in competition here this afternoon. We do have 3 races to go in the championship, and several drivers remain mathematically eligible to take the title, but it looks like it's going to boil down to a battle between the Marlboro Team Penske drivers, Helio Castroneves and Gilles de Ferran. And speaking of de DeFerrin shortly after our last race 2 weeks ago in Nazareth. DeFerrin announced his retirement, and Gary Gerald, Sam Hornish will take his place.
And when that announcement was made, Bob, open wheel race fans around the country rejoiced. There was a collective sigh of relief because they thought they were losing the young coming star to NASCAR. But before he joins Team Penske, 3 races to go for the Panther team. Something to keep in mind, since he got that rejuvenated Gen 4 power plant from Chevrolet, he's run 3 times, he's won once, he's been second the other 2 times. He starts 8th today, and we can't forget, he won a spectacular shootout at this track 1 year ago. And Jack Arute, there have been other changes this week.
Yeah, and there's some good changes as well. Felipe Giafone, remember, he was injured. He's back behind the wheel of his car. That has moved Alex Barron over to the 52 Red Bull Cheever Infinity and Red Bull Cheever Chevrolet engine powered car. But the biggest story all day, all weekend here in Chicago, was the fact that Team Menard, who desperately needed to right their season, they've been struggling with a Chevrolet engine. They've been struggling with drivers who have become injured. They've been struggling all season long. Well, all of a sudden, they went to an unemployed race car driver, a former IRL winner. And what did Richie Hearn do? He put the car on the pole.
Richie Hearn, car number 2.
Thomas Scheckter, car number 10.
Philippe Giafone, car number 21.
Kenny Brack, car number 15.
Scott Dixon, car number 9.
Robbie Buell, car 24.
Brian Herta, car number 27.
Sam Hornish Jr., car number 4.
Helio Castroneves, car number 3.
Dan Weldon, car number 26.
Jonathan Kaki, car number 12.
Gilles DeFerrin, car number 6.
Alex Barron, car number 52.
Tony Kanaan, car number 11.
Sarah Fisher, car number 23.
Ed Carpenter, car number 18.
Alan Sir Jr., car number 31.
Roger Yasukawa, number 55.
Buddy Lazier, car number 91.
Scott Sharp, car number 8.
AJ Foyt, car number 14.
And 0.6 of a second covers that entire field. We're running for the finish of the championship, just 3 races to go. And they will be contested at the fastest, closest speedways you'll find. Consider the races at those 3 tracks just 1 year ago. Closest finish in history here at Chicago. At Fontana, California Speedway, look at that finish. And then who can ever forget the last 37 laps run at Texas last year? That's what we have in store for us. Those races finished covered by 0.04 of a second. So Scott Goodyear, 1,000 miles to go in the series.
All on high bank tracks, Paul. I used to love this type of racing. 220 miles an hour average, wheel to wheel, no room for mistake. If so, you might not walk out here at the end of the day.
It's a beautiful day here in the Chicago area. Blue skies overhead as we show you the trim spot track conditions. 124 degrees on the track surface and barely any wind at all. So the field has started. Look at this. This is Tony Kanaan, and he is on the pit road before the start. They're going to change all 4, Scott.
Paul, probably what happened is that the tire temperature sensor actually told them that there's a pressure going down, so they'll come in underneath this pace lap and change all 4 tires.
That should allow him to get back into his position in the field if he's going to get out there quick enough. Field beginning to form up now. Here is our analysis of the entire starting field, and don't forget, races here at Chicagoland in the IRL have always been won from the pole. Johnny Rutherford, the Chevrolet Corvette pace car, brings the field around, and Tony Kanaan looks for his position. So with the pace car remaining out on the track, it will be a no start. They'll go around again, and that will give Kanaan plenty of time.
Actually, what's happening, Paul, is when you come out of the pit lane for a start and you've had a problem, you have to start at the back of the pack, and he tried to go around the high side of everybody and regain his position where he qualified, and that certainly won't work. So Brian Barnhart turned around and said no start. Tony's at the back. We'll go green next time around.
Yeah, well, Tony took a shot at it. It just didn't work.
I try it.
Gary Gerald.
Tire alarm did go off, as you suspected, Scott, and that indicates a possible low pressure. They haven't confirmed whether or not there was a problem, but he came in and changed all 4, and as you saw, is back out there.
Not worth taking the chance. It could be the alarm, but more than likely it's the tire itself and not a mechanical or electronic problem. Richie Hearn on the pole. And you're looking over to the outside of the front row. Oh, what a great shot. Richie picks up the pace. And we're going to Chicagoland. We'll keep an eye on the front for you as Richie begins to pull away. Giafone goes to the inside of Breck. And Tony Kanaan takes it kind of easy back in the back of the field. I think that's smart.
What a nice start by Richie Hearn. Timed it perfectly. It's a home track for Menards. Certainly a great feeling when you get the opportunity to actually lead the first lap here at your home track.
That's the first lap that he has led since September of 1996. Remember, in that same year, he won, though, at Las Vegas. Tony Kanaan has been told, take it easy. Don't do anything nuts here early on. But as you can see, he is beginning to inch his way forward. On board with Brian Herta.
Tony's car looks like it's been working on the top side for him. He's been running that top line, which they've been doing practice here for the last couple of days. So that's a good sign that he's got a great car underneath him.
That's Scott Dixon, the red and white number 9 Target Chip Ganassi car. Well, once he gets into the vacuum, he really closes in fast on Kenny Breck.
Certainly can hear him lift the throttle. You get in that draft and the car picks up speed quite quickly.
Hearn, Schechter, Giafone, the top 3.
Coming back.
Pancho Carter talking to that yellow number 4, this car, Sam Hornick. Back up at the front of the field, Giafone beginning to challenge Schechter for his second place, while Hearn pulls away. Giafone, of course, back after his recovery from an accident that shattered his right femur.
Still got one inside, still there, still inside.
Look at this, Paul. This is fun for drivers right now, side by side. Remember, these guys are already doing 220 miles an hour average. Flat out, don't take your foot off the throttle, just run as hard as you can.
221 miles an hour last time around at the back of the field for A.J. Foyt, the 4th.
Oh, that's because of the draft. All those cars up front are punching a big hole in the air for him, and he's being able to take advantage of the speed. Now he has to be able to maneuver himself around the cars in front of him to move himself up the pack.
Kenny Breck is well aware, as he drives the 15 car, of Sam Hornick Jr. and that bright yellow number 4 Pennzoil car right behind him. And Breck is moving up as much as he can, trying to battle with Hornick.
Now look how close that is. That's only like 6 inches at sometimes at that speed. And you know, the cars dance around at that speed, Paul, because all the dirty air from the car beside you makes your car move around. These guys are not weaving intentionally, just having a hard time keeping it straight at that speed.
Jinx, Richie Hearn out in front, but a lot of action behind the leader.
Well, Tony Kanaan has passed 8 cars since the drop of the green flag. He started at the tail of the field because he came in and changed tires on the pace lap. He's right now has Gilles de Ferran in his sights. De Ferran is running 12th, and now he passes de Ferran and goes into 12th position. So Kanaan is indeed moving up, as we knew he would. Gary?
We've checked with the team. Kim Green told us they had to take the precaution. The sensor alarm was going off. There was not a problem with the tire. Apparently, it was just a malfunction with the sensor, but they couldn't risk a crash, so now he's having to do it the tough way, battling through this pack.
Tony Kanaan with a lot of traffic in front of him. Just before the start of the race, they said that they were going to put a sticker on Tony Kanaan's wing. I think they did. That said, if you can read this, you're too close. Here's the guys on the move with Hornick Jr., of course, really coming forward. Sarah Fisher and Tora Takagi, both with trouble.
Paul, you might ask, how does Tony Kanaan know that his tire sensor was actually giving him that reading? They have that electronic computer dash right in front of the steering wheel, and his alarm would come up and flash in front of him on that pace lap and tell him that, for instance, the right front and right rear would actually go down. Now, right now, that's exactly where he would actually see that computer screen right there on his steering wheel.
Going to take you up to second place. Battle there, heating up once again. That's Schechter on the right of your screen, Giafone on the left, and Sam Hornick coming in trying to get them both.
See the car going up just a little high there. Remember, he's getting all that dirty air from those cars up in front.
Let's go down to the pits, Jack Root, to
Talking about Sarah Fisher having some problems. Her tires did not come up to pressure the way she liked. Discretion is always the better part of valor, guys, so she dropped to the back. I checked with her crew, and they say now things are fine, and she's just going to ride for a little while.
The Firestone Firehawks here, they brought 796 of them to the teams, 8 different sets. Look at that.
3 wide, 3 wide, 3 wide, 3 wide.
Baby.
Just touching
3
so
wide,
little.
3 wide.
Look,
Clear
he's up
inside
into
if you
the
want.
break.
Got one looking though, got one looking.
Talk about bravery.
I would think, though, realistically, it's a little bit early to be doing that.
Well, you know, these guys, the adrenaline's pumping. There's only 3 races left to go, Paul. We talked about the championship.
Got one inside.
Right now, he's got nothing to lose. He needs maximum points.
And Paul, you know, in talking with their various crew chiefs just before the green flag, everybody almost in a state of resignation. Yeah, I think we're going to see what we saw in practice this morning. A massive pack running together. It's just hold your breath time and hang on.
And Gary, the big concern right now is they try to duke it out behind your leader. Richie Hearn continues to pull away. Checked with his crew, no problems with the Menards car. They're just sailing with the Chevrolet.
Richie Hearn, as you ride with him, has been running 220-mile-an-hour laps regularly. We'll be back. Sam Hornish is still chasing Thomas Scheckter for second place. Hearn out in front. He's out by a considerable distance in the IRL, 1.8 seconds. That's about 400 yards.
If an issue, you can come up on the rear bar a couple of clicks.
Andy Brown, the engineer for Sam Hornish, telling him if push is an issue, that's where the front of the car does not turn because of the dirty air from Schecter's car right up in front of him. He's saying use your rear bar, the adjustments inside the cockpit for the drivers to adjust the suspension to maybe make the car work better for them.
And Scott, they're telling Hornish also on the radio that he is a 10th quicker than the lap Hearn is running. He chases Scheckter, so they're closing ground now on Richie Hearn.
There's your Firestone telemetry. They're averaging 218.4 miles an hour.
Look at the throttle. The throttle's probably not accurate right now. We probably have a misreading on that, but the lateral G's will go up to 3.9, sometimes over 4. You think about that. Twice a lap going around for this complete race, 2 hours. It's mentally and physically exhausting.
The one number that we don't have that you really wish the teams would release, but they are not going to do it, is fuel consumption. Logically, Richie Hearn out in front has been running laps of 218. He slowed down a little bit. Is burning more fuel because he's having to push his way hard through all the air. Here is the car with the fastest lap of the race thus far. Ed Carpenter in his very first race at 221.2. He sat on pole in the Menards Infinity Pro Series race yesterday and finished second. And here he is in an IRL car today. Good run.
Paul, you were wondering about fuel consumption with the leader, Richie Hearn?
Yeah.
Well, the onboard telemetry just showed that he hit the half-tank mark. That means that of the 35 gallons, there is half of it left. Look for that team to pit, if it stays green, somewhere between lap 50 and lap 55.
And, Jack, that sounds like it's pretty much on game plan.
That's pretty much what they had projected. Don't forget, the Chevrolet Gen 4 has made tremendous strides in terms of fuel consumption compared to the Gen 3. I don't think it's a big issue anymore.
There's the interval from the first place back to second and third. Tomorrow night, Al, John, and Lisa are in Philly for a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. The Super Bowl champion Bucks against the Eagles tomorrow night, 9/6 Pacific, right here on ABC. Back with Sam.
We're talking about fuel mileage, Paul. A guy that's actually getting good fuel mileage right now would be Sam Hornish. Getting that tow from Thomas Scheckter. He can maybe pick 6th gear, a higher gear, longer ratio, maybe burn less fuel, less wear and tear on the engine. Actually doing some very smart driving right now this early in the race.
Scott, can you give us some insight? When you're talking fuel mileage, what would be the mileage difference, say, Richie Hearn, the leader, versus Sam Hornish?
Oh, if you can gain 0.1, 0.2, or a little bit more, Paul, that just adds up with as many laps as you do around here. And, you know, the driver sitting inside the cockpit right now, maybe he's not paying that much attention to it, but I certainly tell you the engineers over in the pit lane will be watching all that information on their computer in real-time telemetry.
28 laps now complete. We'll take a look at speeds at the line next time around. Richie Hearn in the number 2 Menards car was at 2:18.7 last time around, kicked it up a bit. Schechter is faster. Dan Weldon, who is always quick, is second quick right now.
All I got to believe what's happened with Richie Hearn right now is they told him maybe turn the fuel system back a little bit, run a little lean as well as it was before. Right now, Thomas is going to have a look.
Yeah, Schechter's caught him. You also have to wonder what his tires are doing, don't you?
Well, right now these tires are so good. Firestone has brought some new tires here, a new generation tire. Right side is the same as last year, a new softer compound on the left side, which the drivers love, gives them more grip. But I'll tell you, to have the Firestones underneath you driving around here at 220 miles an hour makes you feel real confident.
Brian Herta slowing down. Winner at Kansas City. Definitely off the pace. From the nose cam as Sharp goes by. Back to the front of the field. Schechter's had a couple of looks, but he hasn't yet tried it. Jack Root.
Well, you guys are talking about the onboard telemetry and how the engineers watch it. More than 45 different measurements throughout the course of the race. Larry Ellard is watching our leader, Richie Hearn. It comes up on a simple laptop, guys. Literally, if you had the right programming and the right receivers, you could get that information as well. It's like having the dashboard right here on your laptop.
Again, Schechter steps out, picks up some clean air, and then tucks back in.
Probably just having a little bit of a look. Remember, it's always easy to catch the guy if you're very close behind him. It's another thing to pass, because as soon as you move out and try and go on the high side over here, you're starting to push your own air. You don't have the advantage of the car in front.
Now from that car up ahead, Richie Hearn, the Menards #2, there is a wave. You can't see it, but it's just like the wave on a boat coming off both the nose and the tail of the car. And when you get up on the edge of it, you can actually feel it.
Certainly can. It moves you around. It moves your body inside the car. Your helmet starts to buff it, and your hands start to move. Sometimes you can see that. We'll watch Sam Hornish's hands right now. He has that opportunity to get a good draft because he's the third guy in line.
And Hornish is right there in position to move, depending on what Thomas Schechter does. He gives Schechter a little help as Schechter looks high, goes side by side with the leader now. Right alongside Richie Hearn, and Schechter is going to do it.
Getting a little help from Sam Hornish, who's behind him. Now remember, they're on the high side the long way around, so that's a little bit more difficult than being on the low side, where Richie is very smartly protecting his line.
Whoa, look at the back end move around on Schechter's car. IRL has told everybody on the radio several times, be patient, be patient, be patient. Now I'm sure when they see something like that and the back end start to wash, they're not real happy with it.
And fellas, while all this is going on, Sam Hornish Jr. is taking care of business. Scott, you notice he's a little bit higher than the two. They say that's what he likes to do. Clean off the high groove, then he can make his mark on the outside and pass both of them.
Well, it looks like that's what he's looking for. Brian Herta, the report is, now has come back up to speed, so we'll look for a report on what was going on with Brian Herta's car.
Paul, I just checked in with them, and they couldn't answer the question. They knew that there was some kind of a glitch, but it appears to be cured for the moment.
At the front, they still go side by side. Now Schechter pushes the nose just ahead. Hearn tends to lead it at the start-finish line. That's where it counts. But this gives you an idea of the battle that we're going to have, not just here, but for the final 3 races of the season. And Tony Kanaan, from time to time, you get a glimpse of him. Tony Kanaan's coming up through this field and sitting just off the lead now. Schechter finally forges ahead for the first time completely.
Watch him go for the low line now and actually take it away from
Clear inside, clear.
Pancho Carter radios to Sam, you're clear, so he follows it behind Schechter. Some nice move there. It took a long time and patience that you talked about, Paul, to actually get past Hearn.
So with Richie Hearn dropping back to 3rd place, now Felipe Giafone begins to challenge him. That's Weldon just back from Giafone, and then, of course, that green and white 7-Eleven car, that's Tony Kanaan.
He's coming back looking.
And as Thomas Schechter crossed the line in the lead, he's now led in half of the races this season. On board with Kanaan. So it's Toyota, Chevrolet, Toyota at Chicagoland. It's Schechter, Hornish, Hearn at the Delphi Indy 300 Chicagoland Speedway. They're running laps over 220 miles an hour. Tony Kanaan moving his way up through the field. He fell back, had to start at the back of the field because he went into the pits on the pace lap to change tires. So he's coming back now, currently running in 5th place.
Amazing run, and you have to have patience. You have to pick your right time to pass. Otherwise, you end up putting yourself in a real risky situation. A risk-reward ratio is what they're looking for out there, and he's done a very fine job getting up to the lead group.
The top 10, a very tight group at 221 miles an hour now. Pit stop probably coming up in 7 or 8 laps. And then we'll be able to get the answer to the first question we have, which is, how long can you go how far?
And Paul, that last time around, Giafoni 223.1 miles an hour running in the draft.
Average speed now is at 219.2 miles an hour at the 75-mile mark. The 18 car, Ed Carpenter, is up to 7th now, and Hearn down on the pit lane. And it would seem plenty early to get down there.
I think we saw that a little bit earlier on, actually, that he took the opportunity to turn the fuel back because maybe he was using too much fuel when he was leading up front.
Well, and part of what the officials did tell them is you get down toward the pits on the backstretch, the speeds are here so high that we don't want sudden last-minute dives.
Should be no changes. They were discussing whether they would take a little wing out. Let's watch to see if they don't make any adjustment there. Richie Hearn, the first 2 leaders to pit, but Thomas Schechter, who is in the lead, has been called to pit road for Target Chip Ganassi's operation. He will be the next man on pit road.
Jack, a stop that went very long at 15.1 seconds. Here's Thomas Schechter.
The key for Schechter is to make this as flawless as possible. How many times under green flag conditions have we seen crews trying to get an extra 1,000 make a critical error? Let's say they're taking on a full load of fuel. He lights it up, and he is off and away in 9.8 seconds.
Sam Hornish picks up the lead. Helio Castroneves is on the pit road. Ed Carpenter is on the pit road now.
Now, Paul, this will be one of the first stops for him because remember, in the Infinity Pro Series, it's just a straight race. There is no pit stops whatsoever. So something brand new for him and a nice clean job, putting on a lot of pressure in your very first pit stop.
Yeah, there's almost more tension for him there than racing because he's got to sit and wait and make sure everything is right. Castroneves in and out. Scott Sharp has also stopped, as has his teammate, Al Unser Jr., and now Hornish gives up the lead and heads for the pit road. Down to the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. A.J. Foyt IV is just pulling into his pits ahead of him, and Tony Kanaan is right behind Hornish. That's Barron in the 52 car. And Tony Kanaan, it was very close to being a block as he came in.
Well, for Sam Hornish, the car was neutral, but they make a half turn on the front wings, both sides. Quick service, he's gone. We watch now as Kanaan gets service. Now they're pushing Kanaan, but Hornish beats it. Oh, Kanaan has stalled. Kanaan has stalled.
Some days when you don't have luck, you just don't get it anywhere around.
He lights the engine.
Meanwhile, Felipe Giafoni takes one half turn up on his wing. He pulls away as Brian Herta pulls onto pit road, and Dan Weldon will be called in next. It's getting busy down here, guys.
Oh, baby, Dan Weldon picked up the lead. His teammates, Tony Kanaan and Brian Herta, both have been to the pit road. And this is the first time that Dan Weldon has led an IRL race in his career. Right behind him, you see Dixon, who picked up second place behind him, also coming in.
Now, important to note, Paul, that Dixon was actually gaining on the apron in turns 3 and 4 until he got to the speed zone. So that's something that Weldon will actually learn through experience. Go as quickly as you can coming into the pits.
Scott, they want to take on a full load of fuel. They have told Dan Weldon, be very careful. We're going to be very deliberate. He cranked it up, and he is off and away in 10.0 seconds.
Yeah, deliberate but perfect for the Andretti Green team. And Dan Weldon rolls back.
And remember, he's a rookie also. A lot of pressure on those pit stops, especially when you've come in from leading your very first time. You can see that a faster stop was done by Dixon because he got out of the pit lane just a little sooner.
And with that exchange in the pits, it's Sam Hornish that will pick up the lead, followed by Schechter. That's Weldon still coming up to speed there. Hornish is just flying. That car will work anywhere.
That was Dixon that he just went past now, so he takes the lead. It takes a couple of laps for the tire pressures to come up and for you to build momentum. That's why he has the advantage of coming around a couple of times in their hot laps and taking over from those two guys that came out of the pits.
Well, you saw the track temperature earlier at 124 degrees. It's still at least a good lap before they're fully up to temperature. Giafone.
Got one looking.
Giafone tight there in that battle with Dixon. You're looking at the top 5. Now the top 6.
Coming back looking.
After pit stops, these guys all come back to the front lead group again. That's why pit stops are so crucial. You mentioned, Paul, about a lot of pressure on the driver. It's a lot of pressure on the teams also. Those guys have to get those 4 Firestone tires changed and add 35 gallons of methanol fuel in just under 10 seconds. Those guys do a great job. They do a lot of training back in the pits and also back at the shop to get better and better each weekend.
They're now beginning to close on traffic for the first time. Alex Barron and A.J. Foyt IV both sitting ahead of them. And Felipe Giafone, that's a 21 car, 3rd place right now, consistently runs that lower line.
And Paul, it'll be interesting to see how he does now. Remember, he made a half-turn wing adjustment during that pit stop, which changes the balance just a bit, Scott Goodyear, and it looks like it's making the car stick a little better down low.
Well, Jack, what that also tells me is that he's very happy with the car. A half a turn is just a half a degree. They're looking for a very minor change. If you end up putting a turn or 2 turns into it, that means you weren't very happy with the car in the beginning.
Paul Page, Scott Goodyear, Bob Jenkins up top. This is the Delphi Indy 300, the IRL Indycar Series. Jack Arute, Gary Gerald down below. 3 more races to go in the championship, and this thing has been green flag right from the start. Now 64 laps into it, led early on by Richie Hearn, now in the number 2 Menards car, and they've been averaging, look at that, 213.8 miles an hour average. That's with the pit stop.
On the outside. Looks like he's drifting pretty high.
There goes Sam right now. The green car that you saw, A.J. Foyt IV.
Inside, clear.
Doing a nice job, though, trying to keep down low and leave that high lane for all the traffic. And as a driver, when you hear that the leader's coming up behind you, you know there's usually a freight train behind him. And right now, this freight train's about 7 or 8 cars, Paul.
You know, Foyt IV had a really nice run 2 weeks ago at Nazareth, and he's doing a great job here. So the leader is Sam Hornish. Thomas Schechter is working him. Jenks, what's going on behind?
We're watching the pole sitter from today's race. That's Richie Hearn. He is running back in 8th position, and he and Ed Carpenter have been going tooth and nail since the pit stops. They came out of the track together and have been racing very close since then. This involves an IRL veteran, Richie Hearn, and of course Ed Carpenter making his debut in this series. The battle is for the 8th position behind the leader.
Well, that's quite a story when you take a guy in his first race, and right now he is up here doing battle with the guy who sat on the pole and quite a veteran, Richie Hearn.
Paul, he's done a remarkable job all weekend. Been watching him actually, his lines have been very consistent, which is something that you really look for, is something that's new. Right now he's getting all this experience he never really had before, but he's doing it 220 miles an hour instead of the 175 or 180 that the Infinity Pro Series cars go around.
Back at the front of the field, Schechter still working on Hornish. Giafone now seems to recognize that maybe 3rd place is a pretty good place to be, as long, of course, as you don't get overhauled there. So it's Hornish, Schechter, Giafone, top 3 at Chicagoland.
And for the first time today here at Chicagoland Speedway, the drivers get a bit of a break, and so do those of us who are watching this race with our breath held most of the time. We have a debris caution out there. There is debris in both turns 2 and 4, and so the caution is out, slowing the pace, which had been at the rate of an average of 214.3 miles an hour before this caution came out on lap number 73. Now, all the cars had made pit stops within the last 19 laps or so, but with this caution, we anticipate that more pit stops will be coming here shortly. Sam Hornish Jr. is the leader of the race over Thomas Scheckter, Scott Dixon, Felipe Giafoni, and Dan Weldon. Those are the top 5, as indeed we see several cars turning hard left and making an entrance onto pit lane, including about the first 7 or 8 drivers.
And the first of the leaders, Bob, to hit his marks is Thomas Scheckter. This will be a very fast stop. Doesn't take long to change the Firestone tires. In fact, they're done fueling already. He is off and away.
And for Sam Hornish, it's fuel and fresh tires. He's gone. Dan Weldon beat Hornish out.
So now the mad scramble off of pit lane. The car that did not come in for a stop that time, at least the only one that was on the lead lap, was Buddy Lazier in car number 91. We have had 6 leaders of this race so far in the first 75 laps. There is Lazier, and we have 3 cars that are not on the lead lap. They are Al Unser Jr., Sarah Fisher, and A.J. Foyt IV. So Buddy Lazier will be leading his first laps of the 2003 series as he stays out during this caution period.
Bob, let me update you on Dan Weldon. That was a moment of redemption for he and his Jim Beam Klein Tools team. They stalled the car momentarily during the green flag stop. The entire crew was crestfallen. When this yellow came out, when they were able to call Dan Weldon back onto pit road, they went to work and it looked like mechanized ballet. Now they're all smiles. My, how quick they forgot about that green flag miscue.
And as a result, Dan will be in the second position. There is Michael Andretti, the owner of the team for which Dan Weldon competes. He will be second. Buddy Lazier shown as the leader, then Hornish, Scheckter, and Castro Neves. Well, we have seen some incredibly close racing in the first few laps of this race. There was an incident between Giafoni and Hornish. More close racing, and then Alex Barron and Tony Kanaan were wheel to wheel for several laps in the first 75 laps of this event. But we are under caution. This will be a short caution because the debris has been picked up in the 2 areas of the track that it was spotted in, and so we should go back to racing in just a few moments. Richie Hearn has led the most laps so far in the first 75 laps, 37 laps, but we have had now 7 different leaders. And our onboard cameras are working. We have an incredible number of angles, 23 of them as a matter of fact, on 8 different race cars. Down to Gary.
Bob, you mentioned early on Greg Ray had problems this weekend, a heavy crash in practice the first day. You're fine, obviously. How's the race car, and will we see you guys able to run at our next race at Fontana?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad day on Friday. We had a catastrophic failure before we even got going, and basically wrote the car off. So we're trying to negotiate to get a new car tomorrow and try to get that trim spot team out there again. So we knew we had a great setup. We knew we had a great Honda motor, but we just don't get to play on the track this weekend.
This was a 68G hit, guys, and he walked away from it. We're real happy about that. We hope to see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Gary.
The car was an absolute mess, but as you indicated and as we see, Greg Ray is okay. And now the signal is going out for 1 more lap to go. By the way, the debris that caused the caution was a right side Buckeye cover that was spotted over in turn number 2. All right, here's the way they're going to line up now. The top 10 for the restart. Lazier, Weldon, Hornish, Scheckter, Castro Neves, Giafoni, Dixon, Breck, Hearn, and Kanaan. Those are the top 10 as we are about to go back to racing. And Paul Page, it's good to see Buddy Lazier at the front of the field for the first time in the 2003 IRL IndyCar Series.
Yeah, of course, he got there as a result of not stopping, which may be a really good tactical move. He's only 27 laps out from his last stop. There is your restart order. They'll come straight up to the line.
Green, 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 green.
Buddy accelerates at Chevrolet, Honda, Chevrolet, Toyota, top 4 on the restart. Weldon moves high. Down the backstretch now. Hornish tries to look to the inside. Chevrolet power here.
Outside.
So Weldon and Hornish both pass Lazier.
A very nice read by Hornish to read what was going to go on up ahead.
Schechter's there too.
That great new nose cam really gives you an idea how much the banking is here, that 18 degrees.
And thanks, Ron Hemmelgarn, for putting it on there and putting the car number right there too. Those are the top 3 just ahead of you. And IRL Race Control is still imploring the teams to be patient. 119 laps yet to go in this race.
And Paul, that patience also goes toward fuel conservation. The word for Kenny Breck, who's listed in 7th place, is that unless he conserves fuel dramatically, he'll be 2 laps off the pace of the other front runners by the time we get to the end of this 200 laps.
There's Tony Kanaan, and he's getting overhauled by Richie Hearn right now. Look at his hands.
Now remember, Paul, these guys all have an opportunity to make some changes during the pit stops, whether it's wing adjustments or sometimes just a very slight change in tire pressure from the last set of tires they had on.
Tony Kanaan works the gear shift heavy. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. 2 seconds cover the top 15 as Schechter goes side by side with Weldon for the lead. It's Honda and Toyota fighting one another. Honda's been leading with Weldon at the wheel, and Schechter comes up to try and challenge, then thinks more of it, drops back. Schechter's teammate Dixon at the same time gets around Hornish Jr. and moves into 3rd place. Now you're with Hornish.
Oh, a lot of people were surprised that Dixon wasn't on pole because he's been on pole so many times this year, and we've seen the target front row. But it didn't happen for qualifying, but race is most important, and Sam Hornish right now looks like he's starting to work his way back up, working on the high side. He does a fine job up there.
217 miles an hour last time around. Dixon fell all the way back to 7th, and now is up in the top 3. Another guy that fell back was Carpenter, who's fallen back as far as 17th after that last stop.
Now that may be a result with Carpenter, Paul, that sometimes you put on a set of tires maybe with a little bit different pressure and the driver's not as comfortable with it. And with his minimum experience he has in the Indy cars right now, maybe he can't just drive through it. But they'll take that change off next time and maybe put him back up to where he was, which was right around 10th to 12th, and doing a great job.
You know, the onboard cameras make it look so casual, so slow. Look at that, 3 wide at better than 220 miles an hour. Tony Kanaan, after having a problem on the start, the problem with his pit stop, is now around Buddy Lazier and into 5th place, back doing battle, which is exactly what he has to do if he wants to keep his hopes for a championship alive.
Paul, you say we're just sort of used to what they're doing right now, side by side, wheel to wheel at 220 miles an hour average. I can tell you from experience, your heart is racing right now, your mouth is getting dry, and you're just trying everything you can to maybe make the car go a little bit faster, but your senses are at high alert because you know that anything goes wrong, you're in trouble.
And Jack Arute, the thing though that surprises me is the Penske cars, Catherine Nevis and DeFerrin, are running 9th and 15th.
Well, yeah, consider this point as well. Of all the Andretti Green race cars that are out there, with Tony Kanaan and Brian Herta, the guy Dan Weldon is the only one that has Chicagoland experience. As he continues to stave off the challenges, let's see with Michael Andretti. Michael, All of a sudden, Dan got redeemed during that yellow flag. You were able to get back up and get racing. How is he performing? Has he said anything on the radio?
Oh, he's doing great. Probably real happy with the car. The guys did a great pit stop here, you know, with the Jim Dean Plainfield car. So we're real happy so far. And the other two guys are coming up too. Luckily, they got the yellow to save us, so it's going to be interesting.
And that's the key, guys. They got the yellow, and the other guys are coming up.
97 laps complete. Weldon goes back to the front as he continues his fight with Thomas Scheckter. Scott, you had mentioned to me that there's a lot of guys auditioning for next year right now. Is Scheckter one of them?
You know, he may be. Everybody's sort of playing it close to the vest right now, but Chip's obviously got two great drivers there, and we don't know the status of both of them, but I have heard Thomas's name possibly attached to the yellow team with the Pennzoil team with Panther, so we'll have to wait to see, but certainly these next few weeks are going to be very interesting.
In the midst of what they call the silly season, when drivers and owners are looking for new relationships in the ensuing year. And there is a lot of talk. When Hornish announced that he was going to Roger Penske's team 2 weeks ago, it kind of set off a ripple effect that we'll see through the entire level of the sport. Again, they're side by side for the lead.
Still inside, still there.
Same time, Dixon tries to get down on Hornish. And Cannon's right in there. In fact, he kind of bounces high. Buddy Lazier's down on the inside of Tony Kanaan as we pass the halfway point. There's Tony.
Paul, you mentioned about Buddy Lazier. It certainly is nice to see him up there doing a great job. That new Chevrolet engine, they didn't take advantage of it as much as they maybe could have when they put that new Gen 4 engine in there, but now he's running up in the pack and actually probably getting the juices flowing again. He remembers what it used to be like when he was running up front.
Richie Hearn has the quickest lap last time around. He was the pole sitter. Second quick was this guy, Roger Yasukawa in the 55 car. He, of course, is immersed in the middle of that Rookie of the Year battle with the guy who's currently leading, Dan Weldon.
Now, Paul, watch his hands. See how much he's moving his hands right now? Just fighting the car a little bit off the throttle. This right hand's always an indicator of how the car is working. You can see the roughness coming through the steering wheel. And those blues plastic grips that you can see right there are molded grips of the steering wheel to help him hold on.
Next Saturday, join ABC Sports for a terrific college football regional triple header. At noon Eastern, the Ohio State Buckeyes battle NC State, or Arkansas faces Texas. Then at 3:30, Notre Dame takes on Michigan. And at 8, catch Penn State, Nebraska, or Georgia Tech, Florida, or Florida State, or Illinois against UCLA. Check local listings for games in your area.
Hey, Paul?
Yeah, Jack?
I wanted to let you know that I'll be doing that Notre Dame-Michigan game.
Yeah?
And I needed somebody to carry my cords.
I am available.
No, you've been spun out by A.J. Foyt IV.
Oh, you're kidding.
He's going to fly up from Waller, Texas, and he's going to be my assist down on the sidelines. He said he loves college football.
Well, let me give you some advice. Don't hand him a microphone and a camera. You may be out of a job, buddy. Look at this fight at the front. Weldon, Scheckter, Hornish. Dixon is in there. There's Foyt IV. Back at the front.
What's happening, Paul, is that Scheckter gets that run, going along the top side, down the straightaway, but Weldon runs a little bit better in the middle of the turn, means his car's working a little bit better. He just ekes out about a half a car length ahead going down the straight. Now Hornish is going to come in and assist Scheckter by running two cars together. He's going to try the high side up between the wall and make it three.
They go three wide for a second, and Hornish has to drop back, loses a little momentum. Scott,
got one closing, looking inside, looking inside, coming inside.
I've seen all of them going for gear shift a little bit more than I would expect on a high bank.
Well, if you do get off the throttle or you have to slow up just a little bit, you can run very close top gears here. Somebody might think you just run a top gear of 6. Well, these guys will run 4th, 5th, and 6th very close to each other to allow them to be able to pick the right gear for the traffic situation they're in.
So Hornish going side by side with Dixon as he lost momentum with that attempt, and Dixon came down on the inside to do battle. So it's Weldon, Scheckter, Dixon, Hornish, Honda, Toyota, Toyota. Scheckter and Dan Weldon continue to go side by side for the lead. Moments ago, Pancho Carter, who's a pretty stout open wheel competitor in his own right in this day, radioed Sam Hornish, try to get in there behind Weldon and take second away and stay there. You'd see Tony Kanaan closing in as well. All bunched up at the front once again.
And all that bunching is good news for Buddy Lazier, whose luck ran out. He had to pit while we were away and break. Now Buddy Lazier has to hope that a caution comes out before the leaders overtake him.
And Jack Alonso Jr. also pitted during that break, and he stalled it. So his problems have been compounded. Extra seconds on pit road.
Unfortunately, that put Unser Jr. in last place. Look at this, 3 wide again. Schechter's going to try to grab the lead this time. Slower traffic just ahead. That's Buddy Lazier trying to come up to speed after his stop. Oh, this is terrific. Now Hornish is pushing Schechter. I guess Pancho Carter's advice works either way, just get second.
Clear.
Paul Page, Scott Goodyear, Bob Jenkins, we're at the Delphi Indy 300. Jack Arute, Gary Gerald are covering from the pits. We've had only one caution period, that very short, only 6 laps for a debris call. Richie Hearn.
Great mileage, Sam, long way to go.
Richie Hearn was the pole sitter and early leader, but he has dropped back to 6th now. Last time around, the quickest was Roger Yasukawa, the rookie who's been turning some blistering laps, but unfortunately is doing so back in 14th. And what you're seeing right now is not only what we've seen right from the get-go here, but what we expect for this race and the next 2 races in the IRL Championship fight, it all ending up at Texas Motor Speedway, the final race of the season. The battle for the championship is on the line, and let me tell you, it's a minimal of 6 drivers who are still in that fight. So as we watch the leader Thomas Schechter and Hornish Jr. finally slots into second place, we have the yellow come out. Yellow comes out, and we're looking. And there it is, it's Kenny Breck. Oh. So this is the first accident of the day as Kenny Breck ricochets off the wall. And you can see him moving around. The help is there very quickly. That's one of the great things is almost as soon as you hear the tires squeal, the emergency vehicles are rolling. And while there's a little smoke coming up, that engine's pretty hot and a lot of equipment sitting on it. Here's what happened, Scott.
Well, I spoke to Kenny this morning right around the drivers' meeting. He felt that he had a very good car, but Paul, I would say that something broke on the left rear there because you saw the car actually slip out from underneath him on the rear, and then you're just a passenger hitting the wall at over 200 miles an hour.
So as they work with Kenny Breck's car, and they've got him out sitting on the edge of the car. He and his band, the Subwoofers, by the way, released a CD this week, benefit of Cara Charities, of their performance back at Nashville at the race there. There you go, Scott.
Amazing to watch, to see what's going on here, just all the way through the turn, and we're going to actually watch for the car to actually come out from underneath us. He's on the low side right now, and we are going to actually see him just start to spin there. Now, I saw a puff of smoke on that left rear, and sometimes that is a half shaft or something breaking. That actually sends the back of the car around on you, and as I mentioned, you just become a passenger. No driver error, looks like a mechanical problem.
Which was the problem that Greg Ray had. They said they had a break on the upright on the rear of the car. And there's tremendous loading on those uprights on a high bank like this.
Oh, you're over 4 Gs in the turns. You can see he's got just a little bit of limp, but you mentioned the safety crew, Paul. Anytime I've ever been in an accident, these guys are always there helping and assisting you. It's nice to see a familiar face every time that you go through a problem.
Watch how fast things happen.
See the debris coming out from underneath there, and as a driver, you don't have a chance, like Yasukawa does, to even think. It's just a reaction from the experience you have of driving cars for all those years.
The pits are now open, and most of the teams are laid out. This is going to be a battle. Johnny Rutherford at the wheel, the Chevrolet Corvette pace car. Good to have a 3-time winner at the wheel there, leading the field around. he understands exactly what the guys are thinking behind him, adjusts his speed accordingly. And he also adjusts his speed when they say, come on, speed it up a little. No, you don't need it, and I know you don't need it. So as they come past the accident scene and the head of the pit road, everybody turns down, led by Thomas Scheckter.
And Paul, this is well within the window. If it had stayed green, they were going to come in maybe 15 laps from now. But now they've got the luxury of being able to do it maybe a tenth of a second slower than under green. But with all the competition he's got, he better get it done well. No changes, and Scheckter is off and away, Gary.
And no changes for Sam Hornish off the jacks. Here comes Scheckter. Here goes Hornish. Hornish has him by a nose, but does he? At the line. Close call.
Oh, man, that was close, but Hornish got a nose ahead. They both had to come from almost midpoint in the pits. And so Hornish Jr. with the stop. Stop works for him. He picks the position up. Tony Kanaan also picks up a position as you look at the marks at the pit exit. So the front of the field is all stopped. Hornish took advantage, and we'll be back.
Less than 75 laps to go at the Delphi Indy 300 in front of a very, very impressive crowd at Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois. This is the IRL IndyCar Series, and this is why we are under caution. The car just snaps away from Kenny Breck and makes contact with the wall in turn number 3. This will be Breck's 4th DNF in the last 5 races for the Bobby Rahal team. When the pit stops were completed, it was Sam Hornish Jr. who came out first, and he will be the leader of the race. Now, there are 3 cars between the pace car and Hornish at the moment. Those 3 cars, Lazier, Fisher, and Allenzer Jr. will be allowed to go around the pace car before the green light comes on and make up their lap. And so that means that we're only going to have 1 car not on the lead lap when we go back to racing. It was September 7th of 1957 when Elmer George scored a flag-to-flag victory in the 100-mile IndyCar dirt car race at the Syracuse Mile. And of course, Elmer George is the father of Tony George, who is the president and CEO of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the founder of the IRL IndyCar Series. Down to Gary.
2 quick notes, Bob. Scott Dixon in the debris ran over something and punctured a tire, but he was able to get in without losing positions, and they made the change and got him back out, and he's currently listed in 3rd position. Right behind him, we've got Tony Kanaan in 4th spot and his teammate Dan Weldon in the 5th position. They're going to try to work together, so we'll try to see if they can work in tandem in the draft and gain any ground on the 3 cars in front of them once we get back to green.
And I think it's important to point out at this moment that the cars are going to need 1 more pit stop. We've completed 127 laps, and the pit window is about 50 to 55. So, Jack, it looks like that everybody's going to have to come in at least 1 more time.
And I think, Bob, you ought to watch Thomas Scheckter and the Target Chip Ganassi operation. They just told Thomas, let's settle back and try and conserve some fuel. So he may just kind of draft along now and let Sam Hornish be the hound, the rabbit, and he'll just be the hound, or maybe just the tortoise.
By the way, we have had 16 lead changes among 7 drivers at the moment. When we reach, if we do today, and certainly there's every indication that we're going to, if we get a 23rd lead change, it will be the 1,000th lead change in the IRL IndyCar Series history. Johnny Rutherford has taken the Corvette pace car off the racetrack, and so they will get the 1 more to go signal when they come around, and we'll be back to racing. Coming up next, join ABC Sports in North Yorkshire, England for the 2003 Walker Cup. America's best amateur golfers take on teams Great Britain and Ireland. Next, right here on ABC Sports. There's the restart order, Paul, as we're about to turn them loose again.
Yeah, they're going to come back straight up. Sam Hornish will lead them at Chevrolet, Toyota, Honda, the top 4. Hornish already on the throttle. And that restart gives Sam a little bit of advantage, but look at the green and white car. Tony Kanaan as he tries to move high on Dixon and Scheckter.
With 2nd and 3rd being teammates, Paul, you know that they're not going to let him get by very easily, that's for certain.
take a look at how the top two cars are handling. Hornish on the left, Scheckter on the right with Hornish in front of him.
Always watch their hands right there. See how smooth Scheckter is? This same thing between both cars, actually. You want to see how little they turn the steering wheel. Tells you the car is working very well for them through the turn. If their hand was to end up all the way up here, it means the car would be pushing. And that's when the car would actually not be going very quickly at all.
In that championship fight, remember Castroneves is leading coming here. He's currently 8th. DeFerrin, he's currently 12th. Kanan is 4th. And of course, Hornish right now leads it. Those are some of the key players in that battle. Alonso Jr. is a lap behind the lead in 20th place, so that might end any hopes he had of a championship.
Kelly cars have not been actually all that quick. There was some hope in practice today for Scott Sharp. Looked like he was getting pretty racy, but he sits 14th right now, so a little bit more work needs to be done by those guys for their mile-and-a-half package.
Dan Weldon, who led his first race today, the 26 car, sits back in 5th place. And you take a look in the upper left-hand corner, we'll show you how the different engine manufacturers are doing. Toyota's already wrapped up the championship. Honda's on the scoreboard with the win with Kanan already this season. They'd love to have another one, and they'd like even better if Kanan would take the championship, the Drivers' Championship, home.
Now, Paul, it's going to be interesting to see if Scheckter and Dixon start to work together to try and get past Hornish. There's no team orders. Sometimes a driver isn't necessarily always going to help his teammate.
Richie Hearn down inside of Weldon. And they stay side by side. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. You're watching ABC Sports Championship Television. Page back at Chicagoland Speedway. While we were away, Thomas Scheckter moved on Sam Hornish, started up behind him, down to the inside, and in doing so, took over the lead, putting Hornish into 2nd place, with Schecter's teammate Scott Dixon in 3rd, Tony Kanaan 4th. .143 laps are complete. Would expect, best guess right now, a final pit stop of the race, maybe 177 to 180 laps. Would you think, Scott?
Probably right around there. They're obviously taking advantage of any yellow if it comes up again. But this is just great racing, Paul. Side by side, wheel to wheel from the 5th on backwards.
There's Buddy Rice. Normally the driver of the 52 car. He's not driving it today. His best performance for Chiva Racing this year has been 9th. There is the 52 car with Alex Barron at the wheel, currently running 7th. And you got a glimpse of Felipe Giafone. Now you're seeing Brian Herta as they both come by. And we're on board with Tony Kanaan, who's fighting for 3rd with Dixon. But Felipe Giafone, one, has been warned to keep a more straight line. The race officials don't want to see you weaving back and forth. Part of the reason that he may not be driving that straight line is Jack Arute. He's had some helmet problems, hasn't he?
Yep, all the helmet, the wind coming up into the cockpit is lifting the helmet right up off his head. So during that last pit stop, they were discussing the possibility of tightening the cinch strap, but they didn't want race control to overhear their conversations. So the fact that Felipe Giafone is a Brazilian, they put a team member on and they spoke in Portuguese.
And he goes side by side with Brian Herta now. Look at his helmet. You can kind of see it there. They may not have totally solved that problem.
They talk about those cinch straps, Paul. What they are is there's D-rings on both sides of the helmet. A strap goes underneath your arm and allows you to actually just tighten the strap to keep the helmet down. Now, the helmet has aerodynamic devices on it, just like the car does, and you actually trim it out for each particular track that you go to.
Tom Sneva told me before they figured out how to spoil the air over the helmet and prevent the lift that it was getting, that at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, there was a time when the helmet would try to lift you out of the cockpit.
You can actually see his head buffeting just a little bit. So I would say certainly he's got a bit of an issue right now. Now maybe some padding came out from beside his helmet, which actually holds the helmet straight, because your neck can certainly not hold the helmet up for 200 laps around this racetrack.
And don't forget, guys, he hasn't been in a race car for 2 months. He's missed 5 races, and so the physical conditioning and the demands may be accentuated because of that.
That's got to be frightening. Helio Castroneves, 11th right now. That's Richie Hearn coming up on him. This is not helping Castroneves in his quest for a championship, but Penske Racing president Tim Cindric told me yesterday, you know, the real game at a track like this is to just stay in the fight, stay on the lead lap until you get down to the finish and keep the car going. I'm not sure 11th is what he had envisioned, or for that matter, a 14th for Gil de Ferran.
Well, what that really is telling you that their car is not working very well for them. Right now you see an opportunity for passing.
Here's a good chance. Look at the helmet. You're looking over from Brian Herta.
Actually, his helmet looks like he's pointed down a little bit, so I would say he's probably trying to help resist the wind that comes over the front of the car and into the cockpit. Remember, you're getting a 200-mile-an-hour breeze out there, Paul.
Hey, Scott, the guy that developed the devices to go on the top of the helmets, well, he was the safety guru, Bill Simpson. He was the one that first introduced those gurney flaps to the helmet, and now all the manufacturers use them and actually make them a permanent apparatus in the design of the helmets.
That's at the bottom of the screen. That's one of the communications antennas on Tony Kanaan's car. That's the way it does normally.
Flapping back and forth in the breeze. Breeze is just a rubber antenna that sits up from the cowling of the car.
Herta and Giafoni. Giafoni on the left. So they continue to carve at each other at Chicagoland. You know, being a Chicago boy, Scott Sharp got to do something I always wanted to do on Lakeshore Drive. Took out the 2-seater, went for a ride down Lakeshore, down Michigan Avenue, and through the neighborhoods. Yeah, that got everybody's attention. Wouldn't you love it? Thomas Scheckter is the leader. There's Scott Sharp. You're on board now. He's running a disappointing 13th. His teammate Allinger Jr. is 20th. Only one car out. That's Kenny Breck.
Hey, Paul, can you imagine that poor kid going home and telling his mother he was late because he got stopped by an Indycar?
Slap him upside the head. Do not lie to me about what you're doing. If you're late, you're late. Oh, man. Scheckter, Hornish Jr., Dixon. Last lap around, Brian Herta was the quickest. He's currently running 6th. Behind the leader, though, what's going on with the Penske cars, Jenks?
De Ferran is not having a good day. Coming into this event, he was second in the point standings. Right now, he is running in the 16th position. He is the last car on the lead lap, and he has fallen to 4th in the point standings at the moment. Chicagoland has not been a particularly good racetrack for Gil de Ferran. A year ago, he crashed here. It was the next to last race last year, and as a result, he was unable to compete in the final race of the year at Texas. Gil de Ferran currently running in 16th position.
His teammate Helio Castroneves is running 11th. That would be good enough at this moment to keep him in the points lead. Kanaan would be in 2nd place, Dixon would be in 3rd, and de Ferran in 4th. Hornish would, given their running order right now, only be 55 points behind the championship lead. Of course, he runs in 2nd place to the 10 car of Thomas Scheckter right now.
All these guys right now, Paul, are starting to figure out what final change they need to make on this last pit stop that will be coming up. Whether it's a wing change to improve the aerodynamic ability of the car, or maybe a slight tire pressure change. But they'll be communicating with the pits, with the engineer, telling what's going on with the car to make that one last change, hopefully enough to get them to the point where they can actually lead the event.
And Scott, I know you love this part of the final pit stop with all the multi-million-dollar telemetry and electronics that are on board. This last pit stop for most of the leaders will be a timed one. So what do? They go to a simple 50-cent stick, a pole that will time the stop based upon the fuel flow. So they just take on what they need to get to the finish.
And what they do with that stick is very interesting. They have somebody in the back side of the wall that taps the fuel man on his back and tells him, pull the fuel trigger out and remove yourself away from the car.
Yeah, that not really a tap. There's Robbie Buell currently in 8th place. And since he's gotten the new Chevrolet, they've been pretty powerful. Schechter, Hornish Jr., Dixon, top 3. Expecting the pit stops to start, and it'll be the final stop of the race in about 10 laps.
And Paul, we're trying to get a confirmation on an actual lap number, but most of these teams are playing it close to the vest. They indicated it'll probably be around lap 180 with 20 laps to go.
And Gary, I would bet the pressure on the pit crews is beginning to climb.
You talk with 2 races to go after this one and a championship up for grabs. You can't get much more pressure.
There are your top 6 in the Delphi Indy 300. Back with the Indy Racing League, 218 miles an hour. They are fast last time around. Chicagoland Speedway. Fastest was Richie Hearn. He's the pole sitter, but he's well back in 13th. You're looking at the top of the field. Schechter, Hornish, Dixon, Giafone. There comes Tony Kanaan. Right behind him is teammate Brian Herta. They are now going to display, the IRL tells us, the black flag, bringing the 21 car, Felipe Giafone, currently 4th, to drive through the pits as a penalty. They had warned him earlier, you've got to keep a little more straight line. There's the black flag for him. And if you don't, we're going to assess a penalty. They really, and they've emphasized it and emphasized it. Scott, you heard it at the drivers' meeting. You guys really have to keep your line because of the high speeds here.
Certainly disappointing for Felipe because he actually is running up front and probably has a chance to win this event. You saw the black flag right there. Now, driver also sees a signboard, electronic signboard, underneath the starter stand with his number on it. Plus, he'll get confirmation from the pit box that he has to come in. I can tell you there's probably some conversation in the pit box right now with an IRL official trying to get this ruling changed. But usually once they made their mind up, not much else will happen.
Scotty has just been told that he has to pull in for the drive-through, but they're going to try and make the most of it. He is going to drive through. Then they will bring him back out onto the racetrack and have him come back in the next lap for his final stop.
Yeah, they're saying if he doesn't get in soon, there's Ian Watt, his engineer. Well, he's on his way in now, that if he doesn't, they were going to stop scoring him. And Scott, you know what that's all about.
I've been there before, Paul. Thank you very much.
Tony Kanaan comes in ahead of him. Kanaan running in 4th as he does so. Now, the 21 car will just have to continue on through the pits. You can't make a penalty and gain by it in terms of a pit stop. So he's going to have to go on through.
60 miles an hour. He will not go into his pit stall. He'll just simply drive straight on through as you see him do. Gets past the pit exit, back up to speed. And then what he does from there remains to be seen from the team.
Guys, we understand that Dixon will be in the next 2 or 3 laps. Hornish may be in the next 4 or 5. Showdown time.
Kanaan didn't change tires when he came through. Fuel only. Here is Richie Hearn.
Let's say they are going to change tires, guys. So now we're seeing the choices. It does take, when you're taking a full load of fuel, they make a change on the wing in the front, and now they stalled the car. Richie Hearn has stalled the car. They've refired it, and now it'll go off and away.
You'll see Felipe Giafone. He's coming down the pit road way back there, and this time it will be for a stop.
No tires for Giafone, and they're just filling it with the fuel necessary to go to the end. How good are these Firestone Firehawks that they don't even need to change them?
Elio Castroneves, after his stop, it too was routine. Front of the field is still Schechter, still running at speed. Hornish staying with him, and look at that, right at the last, he dives off. They were actually cautioned not, well, can't say not to do that, but they sure wanted them to give some indication before they came off.
Well, actually, now they're just going a little bit too quick there on the entry. You're trying to make up time. Be interesting to see whether or not he's actually exceeded the speed limit on the way in.
Schechter and his teammate Dixon.
It flows in at 5 gallons a second. They're filling off and away. He's got enough to go the distance.
Elio Castroneves has stalled on the backstretch, and that will bring out a yellow. They haven't brought it out yet. unless Castroneves can get it way down off the course, and it's not likely he can do that. That's a precarious position off of turn 2, and they're going to have to get him out of the way.
Now what happens here is he's trying to find...
And there's the yellow. Think of what this does for the championship. Helio Castroneves, if he stayed where he was, would have come away from this race in the points lead. All of that changes. It changes suddenly at Nazareth, now it changes here.
And every other driver that's in this championship contention right now, Paul, you're sitting in your cockpit going, I can't believe it. What a great piece of great luck.
It also is going to split the pit stops and give guys like Hornish a chance to stop under yellow.
Back at Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois, where the race only has 11 laps to go, but a completely different approach now to the final laps of this event. We are under caution because Helio Castroneves stalled on the backstretch. He's going to be out of the race, and it certainly has a major impact on the point standings. It helps a lot of people, including Gilles de Ferran and Tony Kanaan. Now, Sam Hornish Jr. was about to come in for a pit stop when he heard that the caution was coming on, and so he went back over the line and stayed out there, allowing him to make a pit stop under the caution flag. Brian Herta is the leader of the race at the moment, with Roger Yasukawa in second, Hornish third, and Dan Weldon in the fourth spot. This is only our third caution of the afternoon, one for debris, one for a Kenny Breck accident, and now this incident, which involved again Helio Castroneves. He simply pulled his car off the racetrack on the backstretch. It has since been put in a safe place behind the wall, and so we should be going back to green soon. These were the point standings as we entered this event, with a 25-point difference between the two Marlboro Team Penske drivers, Castroneves and de Ferran. Now, at the moment, it is a 13-point difference. Castroneves still maintains the lead, but the margin is now 13, and there you see the number of points available for each position, adding 2 bonus points for the driver that leads the most laps in a race, and it appears at this point that Thomas Scheckter is going to pick up those 2 laps for leading the most, or 2 points rather, for leading the most laps today. He has been out front in this field for a total of 76 circuits. So now there are less than 10 laps to go as we are getting set for the restart, as the pace car has pulled off the track. And Paul, it should be a shootout.
Oh, and it's going to be fascinating as they've been waving much of the field past the pace car to get everybody back in order. The Chevrolet Corvette pace car as it comes across the line and should head in down at the end of the track. With 192 laps complete, they're still trying to get everybody properly lined up here. They're going to keep the pace car out for one more lap. Brian Herta is that car right behind the pace car.
And Paul, it was a lucky moment for Brian Herta. He was literally on pit road taking on the fuel for the finish when the yellow came out.
I'll tell you what, I hope the race officials get paid big money, because sorting all of that out here in the closing laps of the race is not the easiest thing in the world. So it'll be Roger Yasukawa in second place, and Hornish will be in third when they come back to the green. And they are being told now, you cross the line, it'll be one more lap to go. Gary Gerald?
Quick word with John Barnes. How do you pull it off now that you got a couple of cars you got to get by with only a handful of laps for Sam Hornish?
We'll let Sam work that out. He's got the product to do it with, and car's been off all day, and we'll see how he does.
You think it'll be a high side pass?
You know Sam.
Yes, we do.
Well, you know that he's got 2 guys in front of him. They're pretty serious as well, and Yasukawa and certainly Brian Herta, winner earlier this year, driving for Andretti Green. Don't forget to join us in 2 weeks as the IRL IndyCar Series top drivers will take their points battle on to the ultra-fast California Speedway. It's the Toyota Indy 400, Sunday, September 21st at 3 noon Pacific here on ABC Sports. There's the restart order. Thomas Scheckter, Dixon, and Kanaan are going to have cars that they have to get around to get in touch with the lead.
Green, 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 green.
You're looking back from Roger Yasukawa. Hornish right behind him. Brian Herta out in front. Pulls away, gets a nice start. Front of the field gets a nice start.
Got one looking.
Look at that. Hornish goes up high.
Inside. Clear behind.
And wow, Weldon just rockets through there.
Puts that Honda power to use and did a great job and a great draft on the restart. Some great side-by-side racing.
Oh yeah, now they go for the lead. Roger Yasukawa, great Southern California racer, and Brian Herta. And they stay there side by side.
The veteran Herta on the low side and Yasukawa the rookie.
Hornish coming up on the outside. They run three wide into three.
Three wide.
I don't know how this is going to work, Paul.
And be careful.
Three wide. Still three wide.
Oh, it takes your breath away.
Off of each other.
Three wide. Go ahead, move on down. Move on down.
Roger Yasukawa, the rookie, and it was in the middle like a ping pong ball.
Dixon coming down the inside now. Hornish into second place. Dixon is third. Yasukawa just finally said, I've had enough of this, and had to get back out of there. Herta's still the leader. 4 laps to go.
Herta will play it smart. He'll play it low. Now watch what's going on with Schechter.
Looking inside.
Dual problems. Schechter right behind Hornish on the high side. But Brian Herta has been giving this car a great ride this year.
Still there. Come on back.
That's still the quick way.
This is so much fun, Paul. This is when the drivers love this shootout.
Got one inside. Got one inside. 2 to go. 2 to go.
The crowd on its feet. 2 to go.
Clear inside.
And you know what? We got 2 more races of this. One in California and one at Texas before we decide the championship. Herta still holds on down low. Herta sees the white flag. 1 to go. Hornish now surges ahead.
White flag.
Now that's very important what we just saw there, Paul, because at the line, Herta was actually not far enough ahead of Hornish.
Closest finish in IRL history was here last year. Will it be closer this year? Hornish and Herta. They hammer for turn 3. Come through turn 3. The final corner just ahead. Dixon closes down in behind them, and they're going to go 3 wide at the line, and it's Hornish. Hornish takes it at the line. Dixon gets second, and Herta drops to third.
Well done, Sammy. I don't know what to say, buddy.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Look at Dixon. His wheels are actually on the low side on the white line. What amazing driving.
And Michael Andretti looking at him saying, what happened?
I can't believe we didn't have a crash.
That was some incredible driving by all of them. 99 ten-thousandths of a second is the unofficial report. Sam Hornish wins the Delphi Indy 300.
How tough was this win for the Pennzoil Panther team? An oil fire. They cooked the Chevrolet engine as he came across the stripe. But Sam Hornish Jr. puts the Panther pack yet again back in victory lane. There's nothing left of that Gen 4, Sam. That Chevrolet engine has had it.
Yeah, we ran it lane all day trying to conserve fuel, and it really helped us there at the end because we were able to stay out while a couple other cars had to pit that were up there. But what an exciting race. I mean, it's getting me nervous, but
you were nervous in the car?
Yeah, a little bit, but it was just a great day for the Pennzoil Panther team. The guys did an awesome job in pit lane, and it's just it's great to be back here again. Chicago is such a fun place to come and race.
Sam, let's talk for a moment about that last lap. There was a lot of parrying and thrusting back and forth, and then all of a sudden, right down at the line, here we go. Take us through it.
I mean, I came off, I was holding my line, and I looked down. I got one car, but then I thought there was another one underneath there. So it was definitely probably the closest 1-2-3 finish ever in open wheel racing, or maybe everything. So it was just it was a fun day out there.
You said earlier this season that if you could run the table to the end of the season, you talked about wanting to do it at Nazareth, but now you got an opportunity to go for a triple. You won the first one. You've got Fontana coming up, and then the big one at Texas. How big would that be?
Oh, it'd be great. This was a pretty big day for us in points. We had a couple people have problems that we needed to have problems, and like I said before, I don't wish bad luck upon anybody, but we'll take whatever we can get.
Hey, Bob, the key is always to have your Chevrolet engine give out after the checkered flag.
It lasted just long enough. It's the 10th career win for Sam Hornish and his second victory this year. Here are the point standings. Dixon moves into second, Tony into third, DeFerrin from second to fourth, and Hornish remains in the fifth position, just 41 separating the top five. We'll be right back.
Well, here's the other 2/3 of that sandwich at the finish line that was so dramatic. This is becoming so common in this racing. Now, let's get your perspective first, Scott Dixon, with a second place finish. Did you think being down low that you would have a shot to sneak through and grab it?
No, I was expecting to finish up third. We had a pretty good run, and I was just mainly trying to keep the guys behind us back. And I thought, I was sure that Hornish was going to get it. I tried to give him a little bit of a push, and then I had such a rate of speed going, so I dove to the bottom. But great job with Team Target. We seemed to pit a little early, and we missed the yellow, and that put us back in sixth or whatever. But we had a great car all day.
And Brian, how much fun is this kind of racing?
I don't know. I guess it's fun. It'll be more fun to watch it on TV. It's high risk fun for sure. But Scott got behind me there at the end, coming off of 4, and I thought he'd give me a little push, and Sam had a run, and I was trying to keep Sam on the outside. Then he had a run, he dove to the inside, and I thought we'd just give it everything we got, and that's the way it ended up.
Well, we look forward to more drama in a couple of weeks in Fontana. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bob.
Well, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you can find better racing than what we saw this afternoon, please let me know. Here are the unofficial results. We had 13 cars on the lead lap at the end of the race. Scott Sharp finished in 11th. Ed Carpenter, in his debut, was the last car on the lead lap in 13th. And then those that were a lap down, and Kenny Breck was the only driver to have any contact with the wall. He finishes in the 21st spot. All in all, 20 lead changes, 8 drivers, and the average speed for 300 miles of racing, 200 laps, 184.294. It's the closest 1-2-3 finish in the history of the IRL, and there are the point standings as we head for Fontana Speedway in California in 2 weeks. Just 41 separating the top 5 drivers. And here is the finish once again. Look at Scott Dixon come up on the inside of Brian Herta as Sam Hornish held on the high side of the racetrack to take this event and put on another great show for the IRL IndyCar Series. So that's the story from Chicagoland Speedway. Coming up next, the 2003 Walker Cup. Join us Sunday, September 21st for the Toyota Indy 400 from California Speedway, live at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific on ABC Sports. ABC Sports is online at ESPN.com, keyword ABC Sports.